In Genesis 40, Joseph, despite being unjustly imprisoned, continues to demonstrate his faith in God-given gifts. He is in prison, but God is with him, and he becomes responsible for the other inmates. Two new prisoners arrive, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, accused of offenses against their master. One night, both have enigmatic dreams that disturb them. Joseph senses their distress and offers to interpret the dreams, acknowledging that the interpretations belong to God. The cupbearer dreams of a vine that blossoms and bears fruit, and Joseph explains that in 3 days he will be restored to his position. The baker, in turn, dreams of baskets of bread on his head being eaten by birds, and Joseph reveals that in 3 days he will be executed. Just as Joseph predicted, the dreams come true. Before the cupbearer is released, Joseph asks him to remember him and intercede with Pharaoh. However, after being restored to his post, the cupbearer forgets about Joseph. This chapter leaves us on the threshold of a major change, showing that God is shaping events to fulfill his purpose. Genesis 40 teaches us about faith, patience, and the assurance that God is present, even in adversity. Joseph could have lost hope, but he continues to use his gifts to serve others, even in prison. By interpreting dreams, he demonstrates his trust in God as the source of wisdom and revelation. The story of the cupbearer and the baker highlights divine sovereignty and how God uses even the most ordinary events, such as dreams, to accomplish his plan. Joseph, even though forgotten by the cupbearer, is not forgotten by God. This chapter reminds us that waiting is often part of God's plan to prepare us for something greater. Joseph inspires us to remain faithful, trusting, and serving, even when circumstances seem unfavorable, knowing that God is working behind the scenes to fulfill his promises. Subscribe to the channel, and stay with us until the end for a message that can change your life. The context of Genesis 40 is ancient Egypt, where imprisonment and service to the pharaoh were part of the socio-political structure. Prisons in Egypt, as described in the ancient texts, were places where prisoners could be held to await trial or serve sentences. Excavations in Egyptian documents, such as the Papyrus of Ani, mention important positions in the court, including the cupbearer and the baker, who had direct access to the pharaoh. These officials were often held accountable for serious misdeeds, such as conspiracies or food contamination. Dream interpretation was also a well-established cultural practice in Egypt. Records show that dreams were seen as divine messages, and interpreters were consulted by rulers to decipher their meaning. The mention of Joseph as someone who interpreted dreams places him in a prominent position within this culture, as this skill was highly valued. The environment described in Genesis 40 accurately reflects the administrative and cultural practices of ancient Egypt. Theologians view Genesis 40 as a pivotal chapter in Joseph's spiritual and emotional development. It is a teaching moment about patience and faith. Joseph's ability to interpret dreams is seen as a spiritual gift, a sign that God was with him even in difficult times. The story of the butler and the baker is often used to illustrate God's faithfulness in keeping his promises, even when human timing does not always align with divine timing. Joseph's asking the butler to remember him shows his humanity, but also his hope that God was working to deliver him. The fact that the butler forgot him is a reminder that God's plans do not depend on human memory or actions. This chapter is often compared to the waiting that many people experience in their lives, emphasizing that God uses the time of waiting to prepare his servants for greater purposes. Archaeological finds at Egyptian sites such as Thebes and Memphis provide evidence of the life and culture described in Genesis 40. Inscriptions mention prisons and the positions of cupbearer and baker in royal contexts, indicating that these roles were crucial in the Egyptian court. Ancient documents show that the cupbearer was responsible for testing and serving the pharaoh's drinks, while the baker oversaw the preparation of food, both positions of high trust. Egyptian papyri also highlight the importance placed on dreams and their interpretation. Artifacts such as the Egyptian Book of Dreams reveal how the Egyptians believed that dreams were messages from the gods, requiring expert interpretation. In addition, excavations in areas associated with prisons have revealed facilities that may have housed important prisoners, such as Joseph. These findings help to reinforce the historical credibility of the account, showing that it fits with the practices and beliefs of ancient Egypt. The story in Genesis 40 continues to resonate in our lives today. Just as Joseph was called to wait patiently and use his gifts in the midst of hardship, we are challenged to do the same. How often do we find ourselves in situations that seem unfair or beyond our control, but like Joseph, are we called to trust that God is working behind the scenes? Joseph's wait in prison reminds us that God's timing is perfect, even when it seems slow. Joseph's attitude of serving with excellence and faith even in the face of adversity is a powerful example of how we can live in the midst of challenges. Today, we face moments of frustration and seeming forgetfulness, but we can find hope in the assurance that God does not abandon us. The story teaches us to stay focused on our values, to trust in God's purpose, and to believe that, in His own time, God will reveal the next chapter of our journey. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share, and remember, each day is a new opportunity to call on the name of the Lord. Until next time.